Hello, happy Easter, guys. Welcome to Glasgow Rangers Nation. It's Easter Sunday. Hope you're having a great day celebrating. Those of you who celebrate with family and friends, hope you're having, a pretty spot on Easter. Hope the Easter bunnies brought you lots of chocolate bags. That's the right. I don't know what the right thing about Easter is anymore. Anyway, although I did get a 20-minute lecture yesterday at work from some very strange woman about Easter and the resurrection and all this. It was very weird at work to have that sort of lecture. Anyway, look, let's talk a little bit of Rangers. Let's talk Rangers FC. Let's talk everything because obviously fallout from Thursday night. Look, whatever you think of the game on Thursday night, whatever you think of the penalty or non-penalty or penalties, plural, whatever you think of the tie overall, look, Bilbao are a better side than us. At the end of the day, that's how it finished. It's finished like that. Look, unfortunately, I don't know what's going on. I'm not going to come out and call anyone corrupt. I think if you look at it, we sit here and we call UEFA corrupt. We call UEFA's decision making bad. We call the VAR system and the referees in Europe bad. I mean, pot kettle. I mean, let's face it. The Scottish game is in the same place, isn't it? I mean, let's face it. The Scottish FA, the Scottish. The Scottish referees, Scottish VAR is even worse, I think, than what we saw on Thursday night. I mean, you've just got to look, obviously, at the number of very bad decisions that have been taken this year. A number of them obviously going against us, particularly against that lot, and the number of favourable decisions they've got over us. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I think yesterday, looking at that semi-final at Hampden, the Aberdeen Hearts one, sad reflection on the game and where the game's at this moment in time in terms of the attendance there, in terms of how teams are supported, in terms of the Scottish game as a product. I think it needs rapid overhaul. It needs massive overhaul. It needs a regeneration. It needs something to make it a more attractive proposition to TV companies and to supporters to come back and actually watch the game. It really does. I think personally, this is not really what I wanted to talk about in this video, but I think we need to overhaul the league system. I think we need at least a 16 to 18 team league. Whether that means combining the SPL and the Championship, I think that we need to look at that. I think we need to look at how the league structure comes after that as well. I think we need a League One, a Championship, and a League One underneath a top division. And with that, we need, I think, the B teams from Celtic, from Rangers, from Aberdeen, from Hearts, from Hibs to be allowed to play in those league structures up until the Championship. Obviously, not be allowed to be promoted to the SPL, but it would give the clubs a chance to blood some youngsters, give them competitive football, obviously play some of the other players as well. I think obviously if you made it some sort of rule, you had to have 5 or 6 players under the age of 23 or under the age of 24, whatever, in that team. It would also help young footballers in Scotland to get on, and also it would help the Scottish national team, the Scottish under-21s, to have a wider pool to pick from. There'd be more Scottish players playing competitively and Scottish players of a higher standard playing as well. I think, look, no matter what you think of Celtic B, of Rangers B, of Aberdeen B, of Hearts B, I'll tell you something, the players in Rangers B and Celtic B would be far better than a lot of the players who play in the Scottish Premier League for Motherwell, for St Johnstone, for Hibs, for a lot of those teams. So I think, that would obviously help the Scottish game. So I do think there is a need there to kind of change it up and really look at the league structure and try and do something. I mean, I don't expect for a minute the SFA will do anything because Celtic don't want it changed, because they like it how it is at the moment, because they're dominating, they're winning all the trophies, and that's how they want it to stay. And if that's what Celtic want, that's what the SFA will do, because we all know that the SFA is run for Celtic. We all know that Celtic have ultimate control over the SFA, unfortunately. Just the way it is. Just the way it is at this moment in time. Look, let's talk a little bit about, obviously, the season's over. Whatever you think now, the season is done, it's dusted. After that final whistle went in Bilbao on Thursday night, Rangers' season effectively ended. I mean, I know we've got the fixtures, post-split fixtures, we've got those 5 games. We've got the Old Firm game, obviously, at Ibrox. That's probably the only game worth kind of thinking about between now and the end of the season. It's dead rubbers, basically. Once again, we're going into a post-split where there's literally nothing to play for us, and it's a sad reflection of where the club are, of what the players have done this season, of what both managers have done this season. I think both managers are to blame for the state that we're in at this moment in time. I think whether it's Philippe Clement, whether it's Barry Ferguson, they're both equally to blame for how bad this team is at this moment in time in terms of how far it's behind Celtic, the way the league season has completely petered out to nothing. You can blame both of them equally, I believe. Or perhaps Clement a little bit more 70-30, blaming Clement's favour. But look, Gretar Steinson. Let's talk about that first. Who is Gretar Steinson? What role does he play? Well, Gretar Steinson is the former Icelandic international who I think is probably most well known for playing right back for Bolton Wanderers when Sam Allardyce was the manager, when Bolton had unprecedented success in the English Premier League. I think they finished 8th or 10th one season, which would have made Derek Clark of Rangers Review very happy. But, look, I think, you look at him, he is really, realistically, he is the power behind the throne. Now, if you look at any picture of Andrew Kavanagh, any picture of Parag Marathe, one thing you will always see in all those photos is somewhere either to their right, to their left, or behind them, you will see Gretar Steinson. Gretar Steinson seems to be the man pulling the strings. He seems to be the man making the football decisions. He is the guy with the football knowledge at the end of the day. This is a guy who's played, obviously, international football. He's played Premier League football. He's also worked at and with some of the biggest clubs in England as well, and has had a role working, in football recruitment, in directors, with the directors, with executive teams, within teams. He has got an awful lot of natural football experience. And I think, to me, when you've got someone like him, who is very much the guy who is controlling things, I think, you have a little bit more faith in what's going on, because this is a football guy. This is a guy who knows how teams are run. This is a guy who knows how big clubs are run. He's had, obviously, like I said, he's had experience in the Premier League. Now, you go back across his career, like I said, he's played obviously for a couple of Icelandic clubs. He's also been at Young Boys in Switzerland, Celtic's favourite team. He's played for RZ in Alkmaar in Holland. He's played for Bolton Wanderers, 126 appearances for them in the Premier League. He's playing for Kayserispor in Turkey. He also had 46 international caps for Iceland. Post-playing career, like I said, he's done an awful lot. He went to study for football management which is the Johan Cruyff Institute, which obviously gives people an excellent grounding. Johan Cruyff personally is one of my favourite players of all time. This guy was an absolute genius. He holds the level 5 technical director from the English FA, so he's got all the qualifications to be a top technical director, a top sporting director, which of course starts to raise questions. Is this man destined to become our next sporting director? Is he destined to take over that role that's been identified by the Football Review that's taken place, that Patrick Stewart has spoken so much about? Is it going to be Gretar Steinson that comes in and kind of runs that side of things? Could well be. He started off, let's face it though, he started off with very small pickings. He started at the bottom and he's worked his way all the way up as well. Something to really admire about the guy. He was technical director at Fleetwood Town in League One, obviously quite a small English club. When he was there to handle scouting, player recruitment, development of the club in terms of improving the club's revenue, improving the club's sort of status within the local area. He then, after that, left to join Everton, where he was head of recruitment and development at Everton. From there, he then became a technical advisor for the Iceland FA. Obviously, Iceland have gone on from being pretty much a minnow of football to actually then qualifying for tournaments, even beating England, I think, in one of the tournaments. Was it the 2016 tournament, the Euro 2016, I think it was? Or was it I think it was Euro 2016, I think. From there, he then went on to become a performance director at Tottenham Hotspur, working with a number of management names there. Obviously part of recruitment, part of development, part of sports science, part of the whole executive team there. Worked obviously closely with Spurs. Spurs, no matter what you think of Spurs, at this moment in time, obviously they are massively underachieving this season, but Spurs are still a very big English club with a huge turnover, huge revenue, and have had some pretty decent players go through the system. Yes, obviously they've not won trophies, but they've done very, very well for they've qualified for Champions League. They've been to a Champions League final. So, you can't kind of belittle what they've done. Since then, he's obviously then been technical director at Leeds United, once the 49ers Enterprises takeover was confirmed, and has been part of the kind of the restructure that's gone on there. Yeah, I know Leeds have lost a bit of money in the last couple of seasons, but Leeds have undergone a massive change, in terms of all that Premier League money that came swilling in, which is a massive amount of money. Then having to cut down hugely, sell off players, bring in other players to kind of fill those roles. And Leeds currently sit top of the Championship, 5 points clear, with I think it's 3 games to go. So there's opportunity there for them to win the Championship and be promoted back to the Premier League. And obviously Steinson's played a part in that through recruitment, through the managerial searches, through all the work that he's done with the 49ers Enterprises at Leeds. So he's got a vast array of football knowledge. This is a guy who genuinely knows what he's talking about. He's a guy who has exceptionally high standards as well. He's a guy who, reading about him, he does not take any nonsense. He's a guy who is quite willing to rattle cages, to shake people, to get things done. He's a real no-nonsense type of guy. And, make no mistake, that he will be the man that Andrew Kavanagh and that Parag Marath are listening to when it comes to who the next manager will be, player recruitment, players to sell, in terms of development of the academy. This will be the guy they are listening to because he is the guy with the football knowledge. Andrew Kavanagh, as we know, is a health insurance billionaire, knows obviously very little about the game of football. Parag Marathe knows a little bit more, obviously, having worked at Leeds United for a couple of years. Comes obviously with an excellent background in terms of generating revenue and sponsorship and marketing, obviously as the Vice President of Football Operations at the 49ers. I just want to correct something that's been going around. People have been saying, it's nothing to do with the 49ers. It's nothing to do with Jed York. Well, it's got everything to do with Jed York because the 49ers Enterprises, yes, are run by Parag Marath. But I'll tell you this, where does the money to run the 49ers Enterprises come from? It comes from Jed York and Denise De Bartolo. The De Bartolo York family are the power behind the 49ers Enterprises. They are the money people behind 49ers Enterprises. So to all those fans that have said, and some obviously that lot from across the city, they love having their say because, as we know, they are financial geniuses. And we know that, if you want to know something about Rangers finances or how Rangers have been run, ask a Celtic fan. Declan, obviously from the East End, he knows absolutely everything there is to know about Rangers. He's the genius. He's Professor of Rangers Studies at the University of... I don't have a clue. They are the experts, but no, they know nothing. We know that, don't they? I mean, Jed York, obviously, and Denise De Bartolo are the people who fund the 49ers Enterprises. So, obviously, they have a say in things. Now, like I said, Gretar Steinson is the man advising. He's the man telling pretty much them what to look for, what to do, what they need to be looking for, how they need to be working in terms of recruiting new managers, looking at player development, etc., etc. He's been at so many games as well. I think, there's no kind of secret that, if he was just the technical director at Leeds United with no other role other than being technical director at Leeds United, then he would not be attending so many Rangers games. He's been at the Old Firm game. He was there for both Fenerbahce games. He was there for the Bilbao game at Ibrox. He's been around an awful lot. He's been at the game. He's watched. He's looked. He's learnt. He will have studied what Barry Ferguson is doing. He will be looking at the players. As an ex-player himself, will obviously have a kind of one eye on that and looking at how the players perform, how they don't perform, their attitude, etc., etc. Now, like I said, this is guy. He's 43 years old. He's young. He's very ambitious still. He is the key figure in this takeover. Now, whether or not he will obviously eventually leave his Elland Road role as technical director and become the sporting director at Rangers, I think does remain to be seen still. However, yes, Leeds will be going into the Premier League, and the Premier League is the biggest league in the world. However, Glasgow Rangers are one of the biggest clubs in the world. No matter what Declan from the University of I don't have a clue may tell you. It's obviously, I think, going to be a role that may very well interest him. It may be a role that he looks at and says to Andrew Kavanagh, to Parag Marath, I like that role. Give me that. I'll turn them round, win some titles, win the cups, get them into the Champions League, sort them out. Let me do it. I can do that. It may be that, Now, people who know him, talk about, obviously, I mean, one of the biggest conversations is around, well, if you go into Rangers, you have to get Rangers. You have to understand Rangers. You have to take the pressure, the stress that comes with being involved with Rangers. Obviously, it's a goldfish bowl, Glasgow. We know that. It's a pressured situation. People in the know, people who've worked with him, have said that basically this is a guy who is unflappable. He does not get fazed by big situations. He does not get stressed by big situations. It's widely known that, he is the main man. He will not be afraid to take tough decisions. He will not be afraid to rattle cages. He will not be afraid of what situation he is in. He is not someone who allows stuff to get on top of him. He's not someone who gets fazed by big situations. So sounds like the perfect man, to be perfectly honest with you. He's not afraid of anyone either. I mean, he was the guy basically who, when he went into Fleetwood, he sacked Joey Barton, he sacked Stephen Presley, both big names, both big personalities. He got rid of both of them. The comment that we've heard about him is one thing Gretar is he wouldn't be fazed by going into work at club at Rangers. I think he was like that as a player. Tough. He's uncompromising. He's certainly taken that into his boardroom role. This was a guy who played against him. So I actually remember playing against Gretar when he was at Bolton, and he wasn't shy of making big decisions and taking risks. In that type of role, you've got to be like that, and he certainly was during his playing time. It might upset people, that won't bother him. He'd go into Rangers with big ideas, and I don't think he'd be frightened to rock the boat a bit. He won't be scared of making big calls. He definitely is no nonsense. He's worked with top managers already at Everton, Spurs and Leeds. I imagine he'll be good at presenting in front of people with his ideas, his vision, and that's what the owners want at the end of the day. It's very much sounds like he is a guy who is being lined up to be part of this big part of this takeover, to take a lot of the key decisions when it comes to Rangers. Another source went on to say this: Gretar is very big on working with the club's academy. He wants good young players at the club. At Fleetwood, the academy was only just up and running when he arrived, but he was huge in getting it to the required standard through the grading system in England. He had a massive part in that. And eventually at Fleetwood, there was a big push for academy players to be in the first team. A few of them have gone on to do well. James Hill, for example, was sold to Bournemouth for £1 million, which might not sound like a lot, but from League One England to the Championship, it is. Josh Feeney went on to play for Aston Villa. Jay Matete went to play for Sunderland. So in the last few years, Fleetwood have seen the fruits of what Gretar Steinson did. If Gretar is going to have anything to do with that side of things at Rangers, that will be his aim. Whether you get on with him or not, he's a type of guy who knows what he wants and he's not afraid to make a difference. He'd be someone who would certainly go in with big plans, and I think Rangers have been crying out for that. There aren't enough good young boys coming through the ranks at Rangers, and that has to change. There needs to be a conveyor belt of talent, certainly more than there has been recently at Ibrox. That is Gretar's way of working. Rangers have to get these young players into the team and then make the club money, or make them mainstays in the team like Barry Ferguson was. Rangers have said for years now that's the model they want to have. It's tough, but if Gretar has been hands-on with stuff at previous clubs, he could be a very good addition for the club. So, he kind of ticks all the boxes, doesn't he? Takes big decisions, not afraid to rattle cages, not afraid to get rid of players, to get rid of managers. Obviously has a keen eye for recruitment and looking at player development, is good with young players, good at academy development, good at increasing the productivity and the level of the academy. These are all things that we badly need at Rangers, hugely need at the club. We need young players coming through. We need young players to develop. That's what we need, and Gretar Steinson certainly seems like the man. Now, like I said, we don't know for whether or not he will be the sporting director, but it just seems to me very much, strange. I could be putting 2 and 2 together and getting 5 here, but it does seem to me there is certainly some kind of joined up thinking here. Steinson's coming to the games. He's getting involved with the takeover. He's helping the decision-making process. He's getting involved. Why would he be taking such an active role if they didn't want some sort of input from him after the takeover was complete? That to me seems very much to be the case. Now, obviously, one of the big priorities would be for Steinson, who would be the next Rangers manager. Now, I think we've said this on so many occasions since Steven Gerrard left. Whoever is appointed, this is such a key appointment. This is something we need to get right. Now, I hear all the time that argument. You can't keep sacking managers. Yes, you can. it's such a bullshit argument, because you can keep sacking managers until you get the right one. You don't just keep someone in a job because, oh, you can't keep sacking people. You know, if you've got someone who works for you and they're shit at their job, and say you sack them, and then you get someone else in and they're shit at their job, you don't go, oh, I can't sack them because I sacked the last one. I've got to just let him get on with it, or her get on with it, because they're shit at their job. But I can't sack them because I sacked someone else. No, you sack them and you get someone else in until you find the right person to do the job, to move your business or your club or whatever forward, to get your club back to where it needs to be. Now, people can talk all they want about, 2012, about the last 12 to 13 years, about, one trophy or 3 trophies in 13 years, 1 league title in 13 years. Celtic winning six of the last 9. I think it is 6 out of the last 9 years of one. I can't remember the exact stat. It's just a nightmare. I don't want to talk about it particularly. Trebles and all that. They've won obviously a majority of the trophies. Blah 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 bullshit. Who cares? At the end of the day, we have to get back to a situation where this is not a procession for Celtic, and it is a procession for Celtic, whether we like it or not. It has become a procession for them to win league titles. They just win them. That's what they do, because we're not good enough. And that's not just the manager, that's also the playing staff. Now, look, Thursday night, yes, we were poor. We were outplayed by a better team. We were. Look, whatever you think, whatever you think of the result, the penalty, the not penalty. I mean, one thing I will say, guys, look, yes, it was a penalty, but I've watched that incident now about 30 times. I've watched it at full speed. I've watched it in slow-mo. And I've got to say, Cyril Dessers, you are an absolute fanny. I'm not being funny, but a granny wouldn't fall over if she had her coat slightly tugged like he had. I mean, absolute fanny. I mean, he had no chance of getting the ball anyway, but because he hasn't got the speed. But I'm not being funny. If that's Hamza, I bet you Hamza doesn't go down. I bet Hamza gets to the ball. I bet Hamza gets a chance to score. Dessers, I mean, seriously, the guy has all the balance of a drunken toddler. He really does. I mean, it's just awful. And I think, whether we like it or not, yes, it was the wrong decision. Yes, you should have gone to VAR. Yes, it should have been changed, of course. But one of the things you've got to start to question, and this does happen whether we like it and we don't like it as football fans. And this is not really what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the management day appointment. But just as an aside, Cyril Dessers is getting to the point now where he is getting such a reputation for falling over and then crying about it, that refs are starting to learn that that's what he does, that he hits the deck, that he falls over, he cries and moans and whines and whinges about it, that he's getting a reputation the same way that Ronaldo did in the Premier League. I mean, Cristiano Ronaldo in the end didn't get a lot of decisions, even some that should have gone his way in the Premier League, because he had such a reputation for diving. And Dessers is starting to get to that point, I think, where referees and opposition players know that he's going to fall over, he's going to cry about it, he's going to roll around, because he's got all the balance of a toddler who's just started walking. He really is that bad. And like I said, I think that's Hamza. He probably gets on the ball. He probably doesn't fall over. But Dessers, like I said, he goes down like Bambi on ice. He's just an absolute disgrace. And I genuinely pray to God that we never see that man in a Rangers shirt again after Thursday night. He is a joke of a human being. He's a joke of a footballer. But getting back to the manager, I mean, look, we've got to make the right decision. We've got a key appointment to make here. Whoever we bring in has to be someone who is, above all, an excellent coach, someone who can move the team forward, someone who can set up a style, a shape, a formation, have a progression of play, have a different variety of tactics for A, playing in Europe, and B, overcoming the low blocks or the mid blocks that you get in Scotland. You've got to have someone who is a clever coach to come in. And it does not have to be a bloody Rangers man. And I genuinely, when I hear that and I read that and I see that, I genuinely want to throw up, because it's shutting down the market so much. And it seems to me there's a lot of our fans, and it's a minority, I mean, because our fans are amazing. There's a lot of our fans who genuinely don't only want Barry Ferguson to be the manager because he's staunch and he used to play for Rangers. I'm sorry, but this club can do a lot better than the staunch Avengers. They really can. Barry Ferguson is not the man for this club. He is not the man to take the club forward. He's the perfect man as an interim manager to the end of the season. He's the perfect man to get you through to the end of the season. He's the perfect man to knock some heads together, to rattle some cages, to yell and scream and shout on a short-term basis. On a long-term basis, that style of management doesn't work anymore. You know, rinsing players out in front of their other players at half times, at the end of games, that days of that working on a daily, on a weekly basis are gone, trust me. Because I'll tell you this, there's no way that the likes of Pep Guardiola, Arne Slot, Jurgen Klopp, Mikel Arteta, Enzo Maresca, Nuno Espirito Santo, who else is doing well in the Premier League at the moment? I can't remember the guy at Brighton's name now. Unai Emery at Villa. That's not the approach they take. I guarantee you, every week they are not rinsing out their players. One, because they don't have to, but even when they do have to, they don't do it because it doesn't work. The players just shut down and stop listening. And that's what would happen with Barry, I think, in the long run. The other thing as well is he seems to have favourites, which as a manager is a bad thing, especially when those favourites are not very good. James Tavernier, Cyril Dessers, for example. His team selections are bizarre. I mean, on Thursday night, you've got Hamza, who's scored goals in key matches when under pressure, yet he doesn't seem to fancy him in those games. Yet most people who understand the game of football do seem to think Hamza is the best striker at the club. Better hold-up play, better movement, more reliable finisher. The substitutions he makes make zero sense. He takes off Hadji, who's probably the best player on the pitch, leaves Desa on, who's probably the worst player on the pitch. Even Cherney was having a poor game. Take Cherney off before Hadji. Why take Hadji off when he's actually having probably the better game of all those front players? It makes zero sense. Why wait till the 85th minute to bring on Danilo and Bayrami? Okay, Bayrami's crap, but why leave to wait till 85 minutes to bring on Danilo, a £6 million striker who can score goals? Why would 85 minutes? What's the point? It takes you 10 to 15 minutes, 10 minutes at least to get up to speed. Well, that's time up, game over by that point. It makes no sense, especially when the striker you've got on the field is being so bloody ineffective. It's untrue. His decisions are panic-stricken. He changed the shape 3 times in the second half and never really gave any of those 3 shapes time to actually work. His in-game management, his substitutions are just very, very strange. And yes, I know it's not just him, it's Neil McCann, it's Billy Dodds, but ultimately he's the man who takes the final decision. I got a comment the other day, you're not a Rangers fan because you're constantly rinsing them. I'm constantly rinsing them. I rinse them when they haven't been good enough, when people aren't doing a good enough job. Do you want me to praise him? Oh, he's brilliant, he's amazing, he's fantastic. No, he's not. Get a life. You've got players at this club, and people say, oh, it's all down to the players. It's not all down to the players. Yes, it's partly down to the players, but there are still some players on that pitch who are very good at what they do, but don't perhaps get used in the right way, and perhaps don't get a fair crack at the whip. Hamza Riggerman, very good footballer. Nicholas Raskin, very good footballer. Yanis Hadji, who has been out on a number of occasions, left out, yet has been one of our better players. Again, zero sense, to that. I don't get it. I genuinely don't understand it. I really don't. But there we go. Look, like I said, whatever appointment we get next, I think, has to be the right one. The thing I want to challenge is people say, I had a comment the other day. I mean, I identified Marcus Rosa, the ex-Leipzig, ex-Dortmund manager, as a possible Rangers managerial candidate. And I was told he's not good enough for Rangers. His win percentages are pathetic, etc., etc. And this same person says he wants Barry as manager. Well, Barry's win percentage at Rangers is 40%. His career win percentage is about 27%. Marco Rosa's win percentage at Borussia Dortmund was 65%, which apparently is not good enough for Rangers. At Leipzig was about 58%. That's in the Bundesliga, which is very much a tougher league than Scotland. A harder league than Scotland with good teams, like Leipzig, like Dortmund, like Bayern Munich, like Eintracht Frankfurt, for example, just to name but 4 teams there. But, look, Bayer Leverkusen, sorry, I forgot about that. But, you can't have it both ways. You can't say, those win percentages are not good enough for Rangers, yet want Barry, whose win percentage is, like I said, I think his career win percentage is about 30-something percent. Before Rangers, it's 27%. It's 40% at Rangers. And that 40% could be a hell of a lot lower if we hadn't had some very, very lucky goals. Like I said, Gretar Steinson, or whoever makes this final decision, has a very big decision to make in terms of getting this next managerial appointment right. It's huge. It's huge. It has to be got right because If we don't, then we're going to have more seasons of being behind them. And look, I mean, let's face facts. It's going to take more than one window to develop this squad, to turn this squad round. And as much as I would love to throw the baby out with the bathwater and get rid of all the dead wood of the club, it just isn't possible. There will be some players that we see playing now that many of us may believe are not actually good enough or don't have the right attitude, that will still be here next season because of the fact we cannot change the whole team in one window. You can't buy 9-10 players and ship out 9-10 players. It just is not financially viable or practical, I don't think, is the other one. I mean, certainly there are players who will be going. Dowell and Davis, I think, will go to Birmingham, who are being promoted to Championship. I think Sifu will go to Greece. Obviously Matondo as well may obviously head off somewhere else as he's currently on loan. I think Tavernier has to go. It was really worrying to hear him talking about being here next season and Barry being here next season. If Tav's still here next season, and his captain, this club goes backwards again. It really does. He's got to go. Desa's has got to go. There's a lot of players that need to go. But we do need to think of it in terms of the fact that it will take time to get this right. It is going to take a huge amount of time. Guys, let me know your thoughts on what we've covered in this video. Thank you for watching Glasgow Rangers Nation. As always, guys, on the way out, please like, comment, share and subscribe. And remember always, we are the people.